welcome. So glad you're here. Welcome to our seminar on 6 ways to strengthen your creative coffee. My name is Barry Warren, and I work in innovation in Orlando, Florida. I'm being assisted today by Denise DeSaro, and she's going to be giving tons of help with us for us today. As I began to think about this seminar, I wanted to use an analogy that creativity is like a cup of coffee, because coffee can be made weak or it can be made strong. And 17 years ago, I began a new chapter in my staff career and in my creative journey when I left the field working with Destino, and I began to do video production as my full-time role on staff with Crew. And at that time, my creative coffee was pretty weak. But over the last 17 years, I've learned that just as coffee can be made stronger by adding more coffee grounds, or using hotter water, or brewing it longer, or using freshly roasted beans, or other things, my creative coffee got stronger each time I made kind of a creativity boosting discovery. And we're going to go over 6 of those that I've kind of discovered over the years. And so I found that my creative coffee's gotten stronger over the years. As it's gotten stronger over the years, that's helped me to be a better father, a better husband, a musician, coworker, problem solver, and leader. And I created this seminar because I believe that every aspect of life and ministry can be enhanced through creativity. And one thing I don't want I don't want you guys to misinterpret this, or I want to make this really clear right at the beginning, is that you should be creative. You are creative the way that you are. I'm not at any point saying like you should be creative the way that I'm creative. That is just, I do not believe that. I believe that each of us is creative in our own unique ways. Each of us can grow in our creativity, and there's no need for us to compare ourselves with each other. And there are lots of people on staff that I consider to be very creative, or more creative than me in a lot of different ways. Something that I think is helpful to think about in creativity is that creativity is an action. It's not just some mysterious thing. In Genesis, we read that God's creative work brought order to chaos, and God spoke into the darkness. He said, "Let there be light." And along with that, there was goodness. He said, "And it was good." God created both the material things of this universe, the land, animals, and the conceptual things, the goodness, things that are good. Creation brought order to chaos, and our creativity brings order to chaos too, through music, through dance, through art and engineering, through organization and leadership, through teaching and writing, through a wide variety of things. We bring order into chaos, and that is creative. Those are creative actions. So I want you to know that each of you is creative in your own special way, because you're made in the image of a creative God. And we need you to lean into your creativity, because the challenges we face as a ministry are many, and we need more and better solutions. We need more creative order to address our ministry chaos. And as missionaries, it's time that we begin to exercise our creative muscles more and more. So in this seminar, we're going to explore 6 creativity boosting abilities together, and hopefully we will have some time for Q&A at the end. But throughout this time, if you have a question, feel free to just put it in the chat, and Denise is gonna kind of keep an eye on that. And she might stop me if there's a question that I should stop and answer then, or she might just wait for our little Q&A at the end to happen. So let's start with the first one. And the first one I call it creative confidence. And it's actually, I didn't create it. That word. This other guy wrote a book on creative confidence, so it's not original to me. Creative confidence gives us the ability to create in the face of doubt and discouragement. Look at it this way: a creative confidence is like a motivational speaker for our creative insecurity. It's like an inner voice that tells us, you know what, I can do that, and I want to give that a try. We need creative confidence to overcome our self-doubt and our fears of failure and judgment. our doubts and our fears ask questions like, what if I fail? And what if no one likes it? And what if I'm not good at it? And creative confidence asks questions like, where do I get started? You know, how will I get better? When will I make time to practice? Who can help me get better? Comparison and criticism and failure are three things that'll really kill your creative confidence. So everyone's creative journey is just one step at a time. And all of us start small with small baby steps before we're able to run. After Solarium first came out in 2007, I was on stint in Mexico. And I remember thinking, wow, there's a big bang there. I remember thinking, maybe I can create I can adapt this and I can make a Mexican Latin version of Solarium. And so I began to work on that. I recruited other Mexican staff to help out. And before we knew it, we had this thing called Imagen Cuesta, and it's still being used in Mexico, and I think the other areas of Latin America as well. And I think that creating that thing, because it was so different than video production that I'd done before, but I think that really gave me the creative confidence to then create perspective cards to think about, like, can I make some a whole new evangelism thing. And as I look at a lot of different things, it's like one thing led to the next to give me more confidence to work on something that was bigger and more complex. I want us now to go into an interactive small group sharing time. So I want you guys to Denise is going to put you, she's going to put 3 questions into the chat, and I want you guys in your small groups of 3. Denise is going to put you into small groups. Just choose one of these questions, because I think there is a time where most of us had a lot of creative confidence, and it was when we were children. And I think most of us have some sort of story where we're often in our elementary years where we were discouraged to pursue something creative, or where we were embarrassed about something that we made, or we were told that we weren't creative. And some of you might still believe that lie, that you aren't creative or you aren't very creative. And these are important experiences and lies to acknowledge and share. And as Denise puts you into those, you can choose which one of these questions you feel most comfortable sharing. And you guys will have about 4 minutes to do that. Welcome back, everybody. I hope that you had some good connection time kind of processing through that. I'm gonna just keep rolling here. The second thing is something I call self-awareness. So self-awareness gives us the ability to create more effectively and enjoyably by understanding our creative process, like how we operate, how we work creatively. Self-awareness is like this instruction manual to our creative operating system. It helps us understand our creative processes, how we work, and really understand like what fuels our creative energies. We need self-awareness because we set ourselves up for success when we understand our own creative process and how we best contribute to a team's creative efforts as well. Our creative processes are the particular ways that we best put ideas and creative elements together. Self-awareness allows us to understand what enhances and what hinders our creativity. That could be the environment, even the posture of your body, the tools or the objects or materials, the time of day, even the foods you eat can influence that. There's even studies that show that people have way more effective brainstorming sessions if they played a video game before they started brainstorming, or if they're taking a walk while they're brainstorming. Just really fascinating things. And self-awareness helps us to see how we best contribute to a creative team. So is that through, are you the organizer and the planner? Are you good at coming up with a process of how you'll create something? You come up with ideas, lots of ideas, communication. visual or musical skills, technical skills. There's so many different ways to contribute and to be creative. When I discovered that I had kind of my own discrete creative process, it was when I just began to do video production full time. And something that I realized was that I could not come up with like a plan. I didn't storyboard. I didn't have a clear idea in my mind, like how I wanted a video to look or anything like that. But what I did discover was that as I kind of had building blocks and I put like a song in and I shot some video of something and I put it in, like all of a sudden it just like everything clicked for me. And as I moved things around and tweaked it, before I knew it, I had something that I had no prior vision for this thing, but I had something that I was like, wow, I really like this. This is better than I thought I could create. And so it gave me a lot of freedom to not try to fit my own creative process into somebody else's creative process into how I work. But I've also learned things like walking. Some of my best ideas have been while I was walking somewhere. Having a creative journal, being able to write stuff down, or having a notes thing on my open out on my phone where I could just, if I get an idea, I can write it down because I'm really forgetful. And sometimes when I get an idea, I know like I should just work on it right away. And I think even when I got the idea for the seminar, I was probably up until 2 in the morning one night, just because it was just kind of flowing when I initially kind of started thinking through this stuff and what I could share about this. And taking time to do something and walking away from something, coming back. Those are all things I've learned about my own creative process. So it's kind of a myth that there's just this muse that kind of speaks to you. But I think we set ourselves up for success when we understand our creative process. So to interact now, Denise is going to put up a poll, and here's the first question. The first question is, what am I good at? And it's going to give you options. So you're only able to choose one option. And I know that there's so many more options that you can have. These are real broad stroke things, but I want you to take 20 seconds, jump on this. I'm sorry for you people who are kind of slow processors. What is it that you're good at? Is it best described as organizing and planning, strategizing, coming up with ideas, communicating or writing, empathy or understanding your audience, artistic or musical skills, or technical skill, like programming or something like that? Let's take 10 more seconds. We're getting close. Okay, Denise, let's put up the results. Everybody see that? That's a cool distribution there. There's a lot. I mean, this one actually has, organizing and planning is like the #1 thing. That's really cool. And even have one technical skill. That's really awesome. It just shows how we're all wired so differently. Okay, Denise is going to put up the next question in the poll. So we're kind of processing this together. What tools or objects help me create? What is it? Is it old school pencil and paper, a computer, smartphone, or camera? Is it a musical instrument or art supply or something like that? And for some of you, you might be like, you know what? I don't know how to answer any of these questions, and that's okay. You start somewhere, and you try different things and find out what works for you. Okay, show them the results. All right. Old school pencil and paper is by far the largest thing, and that was the same thing in the last seminar. So that's cool. But there's something in there. There's somebody that put everything. I think that's cool. That's cool too. Okay, next question. This is going to be our last question here. Where is a space that helps me focus and create? Is it in your home, outside, in nature, coffee shop or somewhere like that, your office, car, bus, or train transportation? We're getting a lot more office people this time than last time. We had like very few people say that office was a creative space. And even as I look at this, did he show them the results? The office is the second lowest after car, bus, or train. That's really interesting because I assume like there's a decent portion of us that have some kind of office connection, but maybe not. Maybe maybe there's just so many field staff. There's so many more field staff. But just think about there's a variety of places to be creative that you can get out of the office, you know, and have time and space, or you know, some spaces in Lake Harder actually, like, they look a lot like a coffee shop now with all the redesign that they're doing. Sweet. Thanks you guys for participating in that. It's really cool. Let's go through the third thing here, and that is this third creativity boosting ability is perseverance. Perseverance gives us the ability to create in the face of discomfort and impatience and even mental and emotional fatigue. Perseverance is like marathon training for our creative minds. When I began training for a marathon, something that I found everywhere that I looked was it over and over. It said that your mind is going to want to stop running before your body's ready to, and I think that's really true. We need perseverance because our minds will want to stop creating before our creative coffee runs dry. That's just the way that it is. Creativity is hard work. Creativity is painful for I think for everybody. It takes time and energy. A finished creation that you're proud of is worth that discomfort, that pain, that fatigue, and pushing through. And we all have perseverance. You guys have all finished your, gone through MPD, like you guys know how to persevere in things. It's just applying it to something creative is sometimes something that's difficult to understand. In 2006, I went on the Tribeca Arts Summer Mission Trip in Midtown Manhattan, and the professional artists on that project helped me to see that it's really a myth that creative people easily come up with creative ideas. That's something that I thought. Trained artists and creative people have learned that creating is hard. A lot of them talk about it in terms of like how painful it is. And as I've worked with people in different creative ways, I mean, there's a lot of people that just grab their head at some point and just be like, "Oh, my head is hurting," and that's a normal and good thing, and we just have to push through that anyways. So here's our next interactive thing I want you guys to do. Perseverance requires time, so you must make time. So right now, I'd like you to open your calendar, either on your phone or your computer, and I'd like you to add a 1-hour event during your work schedule next week. And you can label it creative time or whatever you want. But during this hour, I want you to wrestle with something to create. It might be to brainstorm and write down 25 ways to bless your teammates. It might be, think through ways to make the gospel more interactive and engaging for your audience. These are just examples. So, if you get to that time in that hour and you just feel like stuck, like I have no idea what to do, you just explore this question, write this question down and explore. But Denise will put it in the chat. If you had unlimited resources and knew if I had unlimited resources and I knew I couldn't fail, what would I do? And you could focus that on a specific thing, or you could keep that broad. Your self-awareness will help you identify a place to go and what to bring with you as you kind of think through that. And also just in that 1 hour, maybe I'd challenge you, just consider staying off of your phone or your tablet or your computer for just that 1 hour and just sit. Many of you already like having the paper there, but however that you best create, that's what you should use. You can turn off the ringer. The number 4, curiosity. Curiosity gives us the ability to create with a more diverse palette of ideas, skills, and materials. Curiosity is like it provides us an all-you-can-eat buffet that nourishes our creative imaginations. We need curiosity because most innovations are a combination of ideas that already exist. The broader our knowledge, our skills, our experiences, the broader those things are, the more original our ideas will be. Allowing something unrelated, seemingly unrelated ideas that intrude on our current idea that we're thinking of is something that is called cognitive disinhibition. And Questlove kind of talks about it in his book on creativity. And it's these people who I just have this ability to just think about very radically different things and put those ideas together and to create an extremely like original art and things like that. Another thing to do for curiosity is to be whiny, which is WHYNY, to ask questions, to ask why. Why do we do things this way? Why don't we do things that way? That's curiosity. Allowing yourself to just have even just a childlike sense of wonder and just be like, why do the clouds turn darker before it rains, or whatever. In 2005, I was reading a book on Western philosophy and Greek philosophers, and one of the things I was really struck by in that is how varied the fields of study were. I mean, these people, and you could even look at Renaissance painters and things like that. A lot of them studied music, art, literature, horticulture, astronomy, mathematics, politics, biology. Like they just had an extremely wide range of things that they were interested in. And I realized that if I was going to really succeed at being in creating and innovating, that I would need to take more time to learn new things in a wide variety of subjects. I would need a mind of a philosopher, ever growing in a wider range of knowledge and skills and experiences. A lot of that I've done through audiobooks, where I can listen to the wide variety of books and on different subjects, while I'm cleaning the kitchen or something like that. So right now in the chat, I would love for you guys just the question I want to ask is, what are you curious about? What are you curious about? And I want you to synthesize that desire into a definitive statement to share in the chat. So just for example, you could say, I want to read a book about something, or I want to take a class on something, cooking, gardening, photography. I want to take lessons on something, guitar, dance, swim. I want to go somewhere. I want to go to a museum or a theme park or a cultural event. Just take a little bit of time, write that in the chat. What are you curious about? What do you want to do? What will you do to be curious about, to satisfy that curiosity? Again, one of the things you'll notice, all these things take time. Okay, they're pouring in now. I can't keep up with them. I want to learn about storytelling in video form. Curious about how the Cold War affected evangelical Christianity. I want to learn the musical theory behind different genres. I'm just curious about how things are made. I'll learn more about history, how people solve problems. Curious about people. These are all really good things. Martial arts, that's cool. Modeling clay, that's great. That's cool. Well, go ahead and you guys can keep writing as you kind of process that and think about, like, what is it that I want to do? What is it that I want to learn? What is it that I want to explore and encourage myself to grow in curiosity. The fifth thing is what I call collaborative humility. And collaborative humility gives us the ability to create with the influence of other people. Collaborative humility is like a documentary film for our creative cluelessness. Documentary films can expose us to fascinating subjects and people that we just never knew existed. People and our interactions with others expose us to ideas that we would never have just by ourselves. We need collaborative humility because our limited perspective and limited creative abilities are minimized when we collaborate with others. And collaborating with others exposes us to ideas we never would have had by ourselves. Collaborative humility allows us to be vulnerable and healthy enough to ask for candid feedback on questions or things that you're creating. Collaborative humility can challenge how tightly we hoard and defend our ideas. Collaborative humility gives us a greater diversity of perspective and experience through gender, through the lenses of other others and other gender, ethnicity, age, fields of study, and on and on and on. And something that maybe you can do as you're working on things, or even in your ministry, you can ask yourself the question, like, whose perspective and influence is missing from this? You know, if you want to reach Latinx students on your campus, are you involving Latinx students? Are you talking to them? Are you getting their ideas? Are you running things past them? Are you working together to create something and plan things? You should. This collaborative humility will go a long way. I can't tell you how much Denise has helped me with the seminar as we've met, and I've just said, what do you think? You know, and just the ideas that she had, or the ideas that just kind of came to my mind just in our interaction, just made the seminar so much better than it was going to be if I had just worked on it myself and just kept it to myself and my own pride. In the summer of 2017, I read a book that talked about collective intelligence, and it's just the idea that just a group of people working together can create something so much greater than just when people work by themselves. And as I began to kind of think about how I've created perspective cards and worked on different things, I see like, oh man, those things have been very collaborative. I love asking people for their thoughts and their ideas and running things by people. What do you think of this? When Chris Cabrillo and I first began to dream about making the I Am From cards, we knew that we couldn't make something without a phenomenal amount of collaboration from a very racially, ethnically, and culturally diverse group of people. So right now we're going to interact in our interactive time right now. I want you guys to get out your phones again, And right now, I just want you to take 1 minute, and text one, or maybe two people, just text one person that you'd like to meet up with and talk about an idea or a problem, or just something that you want to interview them and ask them questions about maybe it's somebody in your target audience. But just text somebody right now. Maybe it's your roommate, maybe it's one of your coworkers or your best friend. Just say, I want to talk sometime. I have some ideas I want to bounce off you. I want to hear some of your ideas about how you do this. That'll go a long way. Text them. I'll give you another. Just give you a little space right now to do that. Okay. And our last one here is high standards. Number 6, high standards. So high standards gives us the ability to create with quality and originality. High standards kind of sound similar to perseverance, but perseverance focuses on moving us forward when things get difficult or challenging or even boring. And high standards focuses on increasing the quality of our creative work. High standards, you can think of it as like the dashboard lights that warn us about our creative mediocrity. It goes off to tell us that when an idea or a creative element is stale or overused or predictable or trite or doesn't relate to your audience. We need high standards because most ideas start in a conventional, predictable place. we need to move them out of that box. They start in that box, you go to that, out of the box thinking, get that idea, push it out of the box, expose it to other things, put other things onto it. High standards is not perfectionism. Perfectionism will kill your creative confidence. You've got to be okay with not doing things perfectly. And I'm naturally a perfectionist. But Questlove in his book Creative Quest has a really great quote in there that I love. He says, "I don't believe in perfection, but I do believe in satisfaction." And I love that. I don't believe in perfection, but I do believe in satisfaction. When he gets to works on something to a point of like, I like this. I like what I'm working on. I'm going to stop here, because in any kind of creative endeavor, you have to just stop at some point, because you could just keep tweaking and working on something forever. You got to stop at some point. We need to push our ideas. So pushing ideas is like, it's unlikely, think of it this way, it's unlikely that our ideas are going to be better than our low standards. So as we have ideas, we just need to think through, how can I just take this idea and just push it? How can I think of it in different ways? How can I, make it better, make it less obvious, make it less predictable, or the thing that we just always end up doing. And think about creating iterations. It's important to, if you're creating something, whatever it is that you're designing or creating, but it's okay to start crappy and then finish excellently. Creative confidence, you just got to start. You got to just start it. Even if you're like, I don't really know what I'm doing. That's not a full-fledged idea yet. It doesn't look good. All of my creations have like no artwork. It's just text. Or it's like add something here. It looks horrible. It looks crappy. Maybe it's even just a spreadsheet before it turns into a card or something like that. But as you work on it, as you push it, it ends up getting to a point where you're like, okay, this is good. And design thinking is a process that actually really encourages high standards. And that's something that our innovation team is doing training. We have a training for that. And you can learn more information on the survey, what we're going to do at the end, to ask if you want some more information on that. So another thing I learned on that Tribeca Arts Summer Mission was just the concept of pushing ideas. You've heard me talk about pushing, and pushing ideas past the obvious or conventional. And the more I create, the more sensitive I even realize I'm becoming. I think I used to overlook things that I knew weren't quite right because I didn't know how to fix them. And now I just look at it. If I see something on a page, I just note it, or I even highlight it. I say, you know what? I see you. This sentence or whatever it is, like, I don't like you. You're not there yet. But I don't know how to fix you yet. So I mark those things and I get back to those, and that's kind of part of my creative process with that. So it's a myth that like things just come as like a fully formed stroke of genius and a fully formed perfect idea. I mean, most creative people are working to take things and push them into excellence. And so that leads us to our last interactive time here is we're going to get back into those same small groups that you were in before. And I want you guys to discuss this seminar, okay? Has it met your high standards? I want you to practice high standards. So Denise is going to drop a Google Doc, a Google form, doc into the chat, and it's got instructions in there what to do. So you guys go get into your groups and just process the seminar. What's missing? What are questions you still have, and write that down in the document as you process it. Have one of the people or in your group write that down, and we can use some of that as fuel for our Q&A at the end here. So Denise is going to put you back in your rooms, and we'll see you in about 4 minutes.
Okay, I think everybody's back, Barry.
Awesome. Great. Um, cool. You guys like dumped it in there. That's awesome. That's really, really cool. I'm gonna have Denise look kind of as I kind of wrap up here. I'm gonna have her kind of sort through, look for themes and things that seem like people are really interested. We could just unmute it ourselves as well for people to ask questions. It's really good to be able to hear from you. Um, so I want you guys to kind of just real quick at the end here, I want you guys to kind of see the big picture of all this and the kind of these six abilities that we can grow in to increase our creativity. And that is that creative confidence gets us started on a creative endeavor or project. Self-awareness sets us up for success. Perseverance doesn't let us give up when things get hard or slow. Curiosity gives us more ideas and skills that we can use to create. Collaborative humility allows us to benefit from the ideas and the perspective and the help of others. And high standards ensures that we're proud of our finished product and that it works, whether it's designed to work with other people or whatever. And I want to challenge you guys too. I just have kind of two thoughts in terms of challenging you. One is an area of your ministry, is to give yourself a creative margin in your weekly work schedule to think about and create new ways of doing things. Some people are asking questions about like, am I allowed to spend my time on this? And I can pretty confidently say yes. You can talk to your to your direct report, but there's surely got to be a couple hours that you can fit into your schedule to think about how can we make things better for our students, for the other staff around me. I mean, my whole job is basically to work on things so that it saves you time. I want to make your jobs more effective, more enjoyable, and easier. And if that means that you are 10% more productive, that's worth all the time that I spend doing this. And that would be the same thing for you. If you work on something that makes your ministry, your local ministry, just a bit more effective, a bit more enjoyable, a bit easier to do, more intuitive and to do, then that seems like that's just a no-brainer. We should all be doing that. Google gives their employees at least 10% of their time to work on anything that they want, and there are a lot of Google products that were birthed out of that. I think Google Docs, I think Google, there's just a lot of different Google products that were birthed out of that 10% time, and I try to take that in my schedule, but I realize my working in innovation, my role is a little different than being on the field. Pixar does that too. That's awesome. And in your life, this is kind of my challenge to you too, is to just what if we created more than we consumed? What if you gave more time towards practicing something, making something, repairing something, organizing something, than you did watching something, listening to something, and reading? I just feel like that's something that's kind of been a challenge for myself, and I don't know if how well I do with that, but I just feel like that's a really challenging thing, that if we did that, even just in our personal life, I think that would just be very significant for us. And you don't have to have a creative hobby, but consider it. Consider, like, man, if you don't have a creative hobby, consider taking one up and just kind of seeing how it goes, and having the perseverance to kind of get through the awkward parts of it, because it might be, especially if it's just something you're interested in. Like, I'm just really interested in learning more about dance or painting or spreadsheets or whatever that is, that you're wired and you're doing. Denise is going to put a seminar, a post seminar survey in the chat now. We want every single one of you just to take a little time to fill that form out. You can do that right now as we're kind of wrapping up. You can do it right after we finish. And we're doing really great on time. So I'm just going to open this up for Q&A. If I just say, just unmute yourself. If you want to ask a question, go ahead and unmute yourself, and let's talk for a little while.
There were a bunch of great ideas and great questions on this document. Are there opportunities to further discuss this? Or, I mean, possibly sending follow-up conversation?
Yeah, that is really good. That's a good question. Well, I do. So on the form, I do have a thing where if you want to get email, that for this, one of my thoughts was I might take some of these, or especially the ones that have themes, and I might write up a little bit, or maybe I could record a video or something on some of the themes that come up from these questions, and I can email that out to you. But that's a really good, cool question too. If people want to get together and at a different point and talk about this more, we could email out sometimes that we could jump on Zoom and just talk about creative things and what we're learning and learn from each other. Yeah. Cool.
I have a question about just the balance of learning and having creative time. Like ever since I came on staff many years ago, my team leader or whatever they were called in those days, it gave us think tank time. She would always give us 2 hours, and it was like time to think. And I've done that still through my planning process, where I take like an hour and then maybe some time to think and plan. But like just that, is the learning kind of, do you feel like you almost start with that? Do you get what I mean? Like I'll read a book that will stimulate my thinking, and then it seems like your ideas come from like, are more creatively born or something. I don't know.
That's good. Well, I think maybe if I'm understanding your question, like one of the things that I think someone brought up and that I skimmed in here was like, is this like a linear process? And it absolutely isn't. The order I had these things originally was kind of in the order that I discovered them throughout the years. But instead I kind of put them in a way that kind of made more of a logical flow, like starting with that creative confidence. Yeah, you could start with learning something, as long as you don't just like stick with only like watching YouTube videos about drumming. This is as an example, and you never actually practice drumming. Like, yeah, it's great to do that. Like I've spent so much more time watching YouTube videos about drumming than I've spent on my drumming. And my drumming stinks, because of that, and so yeah, do that, but you're never gonna. You got to get off YouTube at some point, or you got to put the book down, and you actually have to practice it. You got to do it, and it's going to be uncomfortable, and you're going to stink at it at first, but you work through it.
Thanks.
Does that answer your question, you thought?
Yes, and even just that whole part, it's not linear. I didn't pick that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really good to hear.
Yeah. I ordered it just because it was 6 ways, but yeah, there's no linear ness to that. Or the one isn't so much more important than another. They're all important. Though maybe the creative confidence thing is really kind of a key thing, because if you don't get started, then you don't go anywhere. Another question?
I'd just be curious if you have any thoughts of kind of like stimulating creativity in the context of like a team setting, where perhaps, you're working on a problem, or, you're working on your strategic plan and you're trying to come up with some ideas. If maybe it's what we kind of heard from you is like more of an individualistic process, but I'd be curious if you would have thoughts on kind of like any team dynamic stuff. Yeah.
The first thing that shot into my mind was like, what if your team brought in a couple of students into your meeting and you kind of interviewed them, about things where you said, or you asked them, like, if you if you ran the weekly meeting or whatever, what would you do? You know, like if you had unlimited money and resources, like how would you how would you do an outreach or something like that? And it might be really interesting to see what ideas they come up with.
When you've got a mix of like fast processors and slow processors, or talkative people and quieter people, one thing is really helpful to do is just take time where you just give everybody a pad of Post-it notes, and you set a timer and you write as many ideas down on separate Post-it notes as you can. And then after the timer goes off, then you stick them all up on a whiteboard or somewhere where they'll stick. And that way everybody has kind of an equal chance to contribute without feeling, without the fast processors and people who tend to talk more just dominating it. So that's one idea. Or play a game together beforehand to kind of get creative juices going. That's another technique we've used.
What kind of
Thank you so
games?
much.
Well, it can be things like word games or mind games, association games, that kind of thing. Or I don't know if you've ever seen it, but where you draw 20 circles on a sheet of paper, and then in like 2 minutes, you have to make a drawing out of each circle, as many circles as you can. And then of course you show each other afterwards, but those types of things that are just, a little bit crazy, but gets your mind going.
Let's show them a yes and, Denise. So let me just throw out just something. A purple hippopotamus.
Yes, and a purple hippopotamus who likes to swim in cold water.
Yeah, and yes, and a purple hippopotamus that likes to swim in cold water, and secretly has a submarine that it can go off into.
Okay, a purple hippopotamus and a purple hippopotamus who swims and has a submarine and likes to travel off to distant places in their submarine.
Awesome. So yeah, yes and is like a good brainstorming kind of game. So it's like someone you could be thinking about something serious, like how are we going to do this or that, and someone comes up with an idea, and you just all play yes and. So you just take turns. Yes, like even if you don't like the idea, you take it, you say yes, and you add something to it. Like that's you try that. That's a game. Okay, someone else have a question?
Okay, what if I'll ask if anybody else will, because this is so helpful. What do you think? So in a team, like Ian was talking about, you can have somebody who's young or maybe comes from a very churchy background, and they give an idea, and it really is kind of like how do you build creative confidence in that group? Because what if the idea really isn't good? Because do you know what I mean? And do you say, hey, you're going to go do that, and it's not great. And so how do you handle that where you're trying to, because most new staff or whatever, we try to encourage creative confidence, and most times it's great ideas, but sometimes somebody, myself included, comes off with some pretty bad ideas,
Yeah, that's tough. It reminds me of when I was at New Mexico State University a long time ago. The Cru students there were given full reign to make an outreach, and the outreach they came up with was "Just come, you'll see." And the director was like, "Oh gosh, like this, I don't like this." And they plastered the campus everywhere, sidewalk chalk everywhere. Just come, you'll see, like to the weekly meeting. And it was amazing. Like there were so many people. And so sometimes like you might see something that's like, and that seems like a really bad idea. That's like, this is never gonna work. but it might. It might just work. So I think it's worth trying, especially if someone believes in it. But you can also say like, I've tried that and it didn't work for me. What, like here's something that does work for me, and what do you think about that? That might be maybe a way that I would kind of approach it, is like, for me, I haven't found that to be effective talking to Gen Z students, because they're really interested in this or this or this. But when I talk about this, they really seem to catch on. So, they're like, oh, okay, yeah. That's a good question. Another question?
I would just be curious if you could speak to, I'm particularly on a campus team, and if you could just speak particularly to the limitations of time that we live under. We aren't able to just be creative all the time, or take a lot of time to come up with our creative ideas. So do you have some tricks or shortcuts that we can work with as we're working with a team when we really are limited by time?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I would encourage giving people some margin, it's, to dedicate towards thinking about, more creative, different ways of doing things. But I was on the field for 7 years, and I remember some things are just slow. Like I think that maybe I'm painting a misconception actually of that these creative ideas are these big things, like it's going to be like perspective cards or Solarium or I Am From cards or something, or collaborative discipleship, where it's like one of the first innovations I can think of doing when I was a young staff person was I added like a question before I went to Law 3 when I was working with a bunch of like Lutheran kind of church kids in central Nebraska. And all of them just kind of basically, like, they had a respect for the Bible, but they believed that basically all religions led to the same place. And that was kind of where the conversation was. So at some point I just thought, you know what, we're beginning of Law 3, I'm going to say, do you believe that all religions lead to the same place? And almost all of them will say, yeah. And then I'll go through Law 3, and after I go through Law 3, Jesus says, there's no way to the Father except for through me. I'll say, what do you think about what Jesus just said? Do you think that all religions lead to the same place? That's because that's what you said. Or what do you think about what Jesus said? And almost every one of them would be like, oh, I was confused. What Jesus said, because they had enough respect for Jesus. And so like innovation can be, or creative things in a ministry can be very subtle like that. But that radically improved my evangelistic conversations, back in 1998, 97. So I think it doesn't, you don't have to have this pressure that's got to be new creative things and it has to be this big thing. But they can be very subtle things that really add value and make your ministry more effective, more enjoyable, and easier. Does anybody have another question?
We do have a question here on some other resources or tips for group settings. Maybe that's something, Barry, that we could add to any documents in the future that, if people want to get on that mailing list, maybe we can collect some of those in the future.
Be great. Any other questions?
Barry, hi. Thank you.
Hi, thank you.
Oh,
You're welcome.
no, I once heard an artist friend of mine say that in Crew, there's like a lot of really talented artists that have a lot of really, have a lot of potential. But a lot of them just stay just like, good artists, but not great, because generally people want to just affirm, but not as readily give like constructive feedback to improve. Do you agree with that? And then, if so, even how do we become more of a people that we can both affirm and also more readily receive and give constructive feedback, so we can improve our standards, improve what we do.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a huge question. I have thought a lot about that question because I totally agree with you. I think in the Christian, at least in our space, we're not very good at just saying like, look, this is not working. This is not, I don't think this is really good. And we just want to be nice. I think there's some complications with this being a volunteer organization as well, and I think that because we don't have financial compensation for like having ideas, we don't get bonuses for like making some really great thing, right? So the commodity within, I think, a missionary organization is that your ideas are very sacred, and it's kind of almost like that's a kind of a commodity. You can be defensive about those things. But to answer your question is the closest thing I've gotten is I was reading the book Creativity Inc. It's by Ed Catmull. He's one of the three main heads of Pixar that started Pixar. And he has a really good section in his book where he talks about being candid, and he makes a distinction between being honest and being candid. He's like, you don't want to be honest because you'll just destroy people, but being candid is a quality that's where you can just be like, this is, this isn't working, is it? Or this isn't going right, or I think this could be better. I think if you spent more time on this, it would come out, better or something like that. So I think that idea of candidness is the closest I've come to like this question. But I think overall, it's like we need humility to just be able to hear like that this kind of stinks. This didn't work out well.
Barry, I have a couple of thoughts on that too.
Yeah,
Having been a coach at CommLab, one of the things that I was trained to do in coaching was, first of all, you make sure that you let the person know what they did well, so that then they can receive it when you say the area where they need improvement. And the other thing is not to dump a whole ton of areas improvements at the same time. You just do one or two first. And it helps as you do this more, you get so that you can kind of figure out which is the one thing that would probably really bring their performance up, or their artwork. What one thing would really help their artwork, and have them focus on that first, and then other things that will help, but do it gradually, not like dumping everything all at once on them in terms of all the criticisms. And I think in more of a when it's a less formal thing, not a formal coaching thing, some of that would depend on your relationship with the person. If they feel like they can trust you, then they'll receive some of that kind of constructive feedback, and just couching it in the terms of, hey, here's what you're doing good, and I think if you do this will make it even better. Because otherwise it can destroy somebody's confidence. But if they know they've got something right, then it gives them confidence to work on the next thing to improve.
Thanks. Michael, does that help you?
Yeah. Yes. I was also just even thinking about like specifically like what is keeping me back or others back from, like going to that place of candidness, because that there could be some barriers to work through. But I don't know. I appreciate what you said already.
Yeah. It probably depends a lot on the people and the situation.
Yeah.
That's cool. Thanks for bringing that question up, Michael. That's really important. Let's do one last question, and then we'll let you all go. We have one more question. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming again. It's been really, really, really great. Let's hopefully we can figure out some ways to keep this conversation going for those of you that really want to delve deeper into this. And look forward to looking at your feedback from the surveys and everything. Okay. All right. Well, thanks again. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.